Welcome to Flekar and Inspire, where raw emotion meets untold truth. In every story, we dive deep into the hidden moments behind the headlines, the humanity behind the fame, and the fire behind the silence. Today's story is one you won't forget. The cameras were rolling, the set was buzzing, and the studio lights cast a familiar warmth across the panelists of The View. On that particular spring morning in 2025, the audience packed into the ABC studio with a heightened sense of anticipation. Whispers swirled through the room. After all, Harrison Ford was in the building. Harrison Ford. The name itself carried decades of cinema, from Han Solo to Indiana Jones. He was a legend, yes, but not one who often embraced daytime talk shows. His appearance on The View was already unusual. His reason for showing up, however, was both heartfelt and deeply personal. Ford had agreed to promote his upcoming documentary, Ashes of Valor, a raw and emotional exploration of military veterans' mental health, as something he had grown deeply invested in after the loss of a close friend who served. He wasn't there to play games. He wasn't there for gossip. He came to talk about something real, but real conversations can get messy. And live television doesn't always make room for nuance. The segment began calmly enough. Whoopi Goldberg introduced Harrison with her usual grace, celebrating his iconic career and his newest project. He nodded with his classic tight-lipped smile, already showing signs of the reserved but fiery passion that people had come to recognize over the years. Joy Behar, however, had other plans. A veteran co-host known for her sharp tongue and unapologetic views, Joy rarely held back. That morning, she was particularly energized, having just returned from a political panel event the night before. She was ready to challenge, to dig, to poke, and unfortunately, she chose the wrong guest to spar with. The interview began to derail barely 6 minutes in. "So Harrison," Joy said, leaning forward, "you've been around forever. And now suddenly you're talking about veterans' mental health. Why now?" The room went still. Harrison blinked slowly. "Why now?" he repeated. "I mean," Joy continued, "you've done action movies your whole life. But this seems a broken bar political. Are you trying to make a statement? Or is this some Hollywood redemption arc?" The crowd let out an audible gasp. Even Sonny Hostin glanced sideways, surprised. Ford's jaw clenched. His voice, calm but firm, cut through the tension. "I lost a friend," he said. "A real person. A man who wore a uniform and served this country and came back broken. This isn't about politics, Joy. It's about people." Joy smirked, not backing down. "I'm not trying to dismiss your friend's experience, but everything is political these days. The military. Mental health. Hollywood. You know how this works." Harrison shook his head. "That's the problem. We can't talk about real human pain without someone turning it into a soundbite. If you're asking me why I carry up, it's because I watched someone suffer in silence until it killed him." The audience clapped lightly, sensing the rising tension. But Joy wasn't done. "Okay, but don't you think some of this is just rich guilt?" she asked. "You know, wealthy actors wanting to prove they care because they've lived so far from the real world for so long?" A pin could have dropped. Even Whoopi raised her eyebrows, visibly uncomfortable now. Harrison's expression turned cold. "Let me ask you something, Joy," he said. "Have you ever held a man's hand while he shook from PTSD? Have you seen a war hero cry because he can't sleep without nightmares? Have you watched someone die inside, bit by bit, while the world calls them a hero but forgets they're still human?" Joy opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "No," Harrison continued. "Then maybe don't tell me why I care." The silence was deafening. The tension palpable. Joy tried to recover, chuckling awkwardly. "Hey, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just asking the questions people are thinking." "Well, maybe people should start thinking differently," he replied. What happened next happened quickly. The producers, sensing the awkward energy, tried to cut to a commercial. A graphic flashed on the screen. But before the cameras could fully fade, Harrison stood up. He didn't storm off in rage. He didn't shout. He simply looked across the table at Joy and said, "This wasn't a conversation. This was a trap dressed as curiosity." And then he walked off set. The audience, stunned, sat in silence before slowly applauding, some out of support, some out of disbelief. Within minutes, the internet caught fire. Clips of the moment flooded Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Hashtags exploded, #Harrison walks, #Stevie meltdown, #Joy Behar. Opinions clashed online. Some defended Joy Behar's approach as journalistic. Others praised Harrison Ford for standing his ground and refusing to let real issues be drowned in media theatrics. ABC released a short statement saying the segment did not go as intended. Joy Behar, in her usual fashion, addressed it the next day. "Listen," she said, "I push buttons. That's my job. I didn't mean to disrespect Mr. Ford or his cause. But this is television. If you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you're not ready for the spotlight." Her tone was defensive, unrepentant. But it didn't sit well with everyone, especially not with veterans. Ford's documentary, Ashes of Valor, premiered just 2 weeks later. What was expected to be a quiet release turned into a massive streaming hit, largely fueled by the viral moment on The View. But beyond the clicks and views, something deeper happened. Messages poured in. From veterans. From their families. From mental health workers. Stories of silence, pain, and endurance. The film wasn't just watched, it was felt. And Harrison? He stayed silent about the interview for a while. No public comments. No interviews. He let the film speak for itself. But on Memorial Day, during a private event for veterans in California, he took the mic for just a few minutes. "Sometimes," he said, "you have to walk away from noise to let the truth be heard." The crowd stood. Veterans saluted. And Harrison Ford didn't just become a voice for a cause, he became a symbol. Not because he was famous, but because, when it mattered, he chose integrity over applause. So what do we learn from this? Not all firestorms are loud. Sometimes, the quietest exits leave the biggest impact. And sometimes, when the world tries to pull us into spectacle, the most powerful thing we can do is walk away with purpose. Thank you for watching this powerful story on Flekar and Inspire. If this moved you, share it. Because sometimes, truth doesn't need to shout up, it just needs to be seen. Until next time, keep watching, keep feeling, and never stop standing up for what matters.